All right, guys and gals, it's about that time of day again here, folks. Welcome back to your nightly newsletter for Tuesday evening, September 23rd, 2014. My name is Joseph James, broadcasting live from our corporate headquarters here in Los Angeles, California. Sidewaysmarkets.com is the web address. SchoolOfTrade.com is the web address. And boy, do we have an exciting edition of our nightly newsletter in store for you guys today. I hope you used those levels on gold last night. I hope you guys did, because boy, did it give us an excellent opportunity there to get short on gold. Markets are selling off across the board. Well, I shouldn't say across the board. We're waiting on crude oil, right? What's new? But before we jump into our charts today, and again, get a jam-packed newsletter for you this evening, before we roll up our sleeves and get ready for tomorrow, I want to remind you guys, get on over here to sidewaysmarkets.com. If you're watching this video on our YouTube page right now or anything else besides our blog, get on over here to sidewaysmarkets.com. There'll be a link below the video on our YouTube page. And when you get over here, three important things. One, you can download all the charts for today's newsletter right below the video. That way you'll have those ready to go with me tomorrow morning in my live trade room. Two, you can grab a copy of a free pass to attend our live trade room any afternoon this week or next, whenever it's convenient for you. I have a lot of questions every day of how we use this newsletter to make profit in our trade room, and I have a special invitation for you to grab a free pass to attend our trade room as a guest. Third thing, lower left-hand corner, right above my ugly mug, you can see here, of course, a spot for your name and your email address. I have a mailing list just for our nightly newsletter. If you want to make sure you never miss another newsletter edition, give me your name and your email address, and I'll shoot you over a copy of our newsletter. Want to give you guys a heads up here. When you register for the free pass, or if you join our nightly newsletter list, make sure you check your email, because I'm going to send you a verification email. That way I know you're not a robot. All right? I think we're ready to rock and roll here, guys. Tuesday evening. What the heck happened today? Boy, did we have an exciting session in our live trade room today. Lots of great trading opportunities here, starting right with the Russell tonight. And you can see we continue to sell off here on this mighty mini Russell. Fundamentally right now, people are worried about China. Slow down in Asia, slow down in Europe, and I think a lot of long-term investors are taking profit right now. This is that correction that they were talking about. So a little bit of profit taking combined with a little bit of concern about the slowdown in other parts of the world. I think a lot of people are probably wondering, is this the final touch of this big bull rally? I personally don't think it is. In the short term, it might be, though, but I'll be very surprised if by the end of this year, we're not back to all-time highs. My opinion's separate, though. Let's take a look at this chart. As you can see on my 64 anchor chart, well oversold. My trend is down. I want to look for trade setups. Of course, we're going to go out and find the trend. We're going to find the setups. And we're going to find the entry patterns. Right now, my trend is easy. Trend is down. I got red clouds. We're below all the red moving average clouds right now. Lower lows, lower highs. Very easy to see that we are bearish right now on this Russell. So where's my setup? What's a trader to do with this? Well, I don't want to sell at these lows. I want to sell as price comes off those lows. As I always say, I want to sell in a downtrend when price is overbought. I want to buy in an uptrend when price is oversold. In layman's terms, I want to sell at a premium and buy at a discount. I want to sell right now, which means I don't want to sell down here. And I've got sell zones overhead here. Now, you might get a little bit of a bounce off that trend line, because remember, that trend line will act as support and then also act as resistance. So that would be the first sell setup, would be at that trend line, okay, depending on where we get there. The next sell setup will be at 35.4. We get about 35 even. So that's the closest sell setup we have right now on this 64 anchor. Very clear we are bearish right now on the mighty Russell. Let's find some easier opportunities here to get short. And as you can see here, we got targets down bottom here. 1103.7 and 1090.3. As you can see, we're cruising towards that big round number of 1100 on the Russell. Let's find some better opportunities here to get to selling here on this Russell. As we go zooming in a little bit closer here, I've got my 32 anchor. My 32 anchor, twice as fast as a 64. Now what do we see? What's my trend? Down. How do I know? Red cloud, lower lows, lower highs, easy as falling off a horse. What's my setup? In other words, where am I looking for an opportunity to get short? I've got selling setups here at 24, reversal line setup, 34, reversal line setup, 35.3, trigger zone setup, trend line setup, and of course 50.3 here, another trigger zone setup. We have a target below us at 1104.5, so be aware of that. As you can see, I've got setups here, 24s, 34s, 35s, 50s, and again, don't forget about that trend line here overhead. As you can see, very much oversold right now in this Russell, and we really need to get this price up off these lows. What else we got here? Let's keep moving it down. From my 24 to my 16, onto the 16 anchor. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. What's my trend? Down. How do I know? Red clouds, below all the clouds, lower lows, lower highs, easy peasy. Where's my setups? Setups are also easy. 13.5, trigger zone setup. 16 even, trigger zone setup. We're also going to have a channel setup, as you can see here at the high of that channel, right? That'll be a trend line setup or a channel setup. 17.7 is a trigger zone setup. 21 even is symmetry setup. 22.2 a trigger zone setup, and then double top setup at 26.2. So if you're looking to get short right now in the Russell, stay patient here with me and use those setups we've given you guys above. I've got targets below here, as you can see, at 1106.1. And looky there, 1100.7. That'll be a great target there for you guys on the way back down. That takes care of the Russell. And remember, don't sell those lows. We're going to wait to sell when we come off those lows. Let's keep going. Now we move from Russell right on down here to the gold. On my gold market, you can see another example on gold today, your 64 anchor. What's my trend? Trend is down. How do I know? Red clouds, nice and easy. Lower lows, lower highs, below all the key moving averages. Easy to tell I'm in a downtrend right now. I know my trend. Now where are my setups? Setups, this, just like the Russell, we got to wait a little bit for these setups here on the 64. This 64 is going to be a great chart for anybody who wants to take 1 to 3 trades a week. And I'm going to boil it down here to the 16 anchor, and that'll be for 1 to 3 trades a day. All right, so hold on here if you want to take more than just 1 to 3 trades per week. But this is where the easy money is going to be made here. These are the major setups here. So downtrend on the anchor chart, on the 64 anchor. I've got setups. You can see we got this trend line coming overhead, so that'll be the first sell setup that we see on the 64. And then I've got 1278.9, 1318.9. Those are both trigger zone setups. And then if we happen to do this all tomorrow, which I doubt, right, there's going to be a channel setup off the top of this channel. Okay? Very, very simple stuff there. So not a lot of options right now in the short term on the 64 anchor. So let's keep going here on gold, and let's see if we can find some other setups that we can use here. Moving on now to my 32. Now the 32, this is what I was talking about earlier here in tonight's video. We gave you guys this 1235.8 to 1239.3 area, and literally absolutely perfect. Jumps up, top of the channel, collapses right back down. That triggered this morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So no excuses unless, of course, you're on the west coast of the U.S. and you're not a vampire, right? It was a relatively early here on the west coast of the U.S., but for everybody else, though, 7 a.m., that should have been plenty of time to be in front of your computer and get that trade short. So we talked about that this morning in the trade room. As you can see, we jump up, we test the area, and then come right back down. So bottom line right now is on this 32, you've already got the short here that's already triggered, right? That short is already triggered. So if you missed it, you missed it. Now what we need to do is use these targets, 1214.8, 1202.6, and then, of course, big round number of 1200, 1193.2. So what's my trend? Trend is down. Where are my sell setups right now? Well, again, I already had one here at 1235.8. I gave you guys that one 24 hours ago, and it triggered about 11 hours later. So plenty of opportunity there to get short on the gold. I hope you took my advice on that. If you draw the trend line up here right now, you're going to see we're kind of sitting here right now on this tipping point, right? You can see we're kind of sitting here, and on the next chart, you're going to see we're really waiting for a lower low here if you want to go re-entering. So if you missed the entry from last night's newsletter, not to worry. Don't forget, you've already got that short. So if you're already in that trade, you've got 3 profit targets waiting for you here at the bottom. I would definitely be using this 1214.8 though as a very, very important target. All right, so don't forget that. Again, downward trend. But when you look at this chart here though now, on the 16, you can see what I'm talking about, right? You can see what I'm talking about. So we went up to that sell zone that I gave you guys last night. Again, there was a nice, easy 2-step pattern off that high right about 7 a.m. this morning. Again, if you took that trade, you've got your profit targets. Let it run. Stay patient. If you didn't take that trade and you're looking for more short-term entries right now, well, this chart shows us that we collapse off that high, and literally, if you were in my trading this morning, remember what I said this morning, 1221 was probably going to be the line in the sand, and you can see is exactly what happened. It literally sits right here at 1221. Now, I'm hoping that we don't get some analysis paralysis and stay here the rest of the day tomorrow. I hope that doesn't be the case. So here's what I'm looking for. I already know I want to be a seller. Why? Because of that long-term trend. What do I have on this chart, though? I've got one green cloud, one red cloud, right? Looks a little bit confused. You can definitely tell this is right in the middle of that range. So stay patient. I would not recommend doing anything right here on gold. If I want to sell, I want to make sure I either sell short at the 2 trigger zone setups overhead. I can also sell a double top at 1237. So there are 3... I'd say 3 different areas here where I'm looking for sells if we go higher. If we go lower, though, that's where the tricky part comes in, and that's where you're going to come out and see me tomorrow morning, and I'll give you some updated information in real time. Because what we're going to do is I want to see a lower low in price, but then I got to stay below that 1221. So I'm going to be looking for a lower low. I need to see these sellers start to take control again if I'm going to give you guys additional entry opportunities here on gold. All right, so just be aware, be very careful in this area here tomorrow, or tonight I should say, right? Be very careful in this area here on gold right now. We can clearly tell it's kind of stuck between, 2 moving average clouds, and we can definitely see here it's right smack in the middle of this range. This is why I always say, sell the highs, buy the lows, right? Stay away from the middle. We are in the middle right now. It's easy to see. The easy money was made taking my advice last night and selling those highs. If you missed it, either wait for price to get up and sell these zones overhead again, or wait for that new lower low, and then just make sure you use, right? Make sure you use those targets that I gave you guys off that 32. All right? All right, there's our 5-minute alarm going on. Keep on moving. So use the targets there off the 32 and wait for that lower low below the 1221. And again, come out and see me tomorrow, and I'll give you guys more information on what's happening here on gold. How about that crude? Yeah, how about that crude? Boy, crude oil still sitting here sideways. And if you remember last night, my exact words were, this lack of a lower low gave it away. And the fact that we had gone all the way up to the high, didn't make a new higher high, that was the reason why 24 hours ago I told you guys to be very suspicious of this sideways range. So if you were lucky enough to have the chance to sell short on crude earlier, you had the idea that you're not going to hold on to this thing and keep it running, right? So we knew based on that personality, we knew based on that clue from yesterday that we wanted to sell the highs, take the profit of the lows. Buy the lows, take the profit of the highs. Sell the highs, back to the lows, right? Buy and sell, up and down, up and down. Now, what's my trend? My trend is down. How can I tell? Well, that's a good goal, right? That's a good question, this one, because we don't have anything more than 2 red clouds. So all we have is 2 red clouds. We're below the key moving averages, so we're bearish. But the reality is the market structure right now, I've got higher lows, I've got lower highs, and that is a recipe for what we call consolidation. So my trend tells me I want to sell. If I want to sell, I'm going to sell at the high of the wedge, at the high of the channel. I've got the trigger zone at 93.22 and 93.61. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to sell the highs of this price wedge because, again, we know we're consolidating. I want to be very, very careful in the middle of this range, just like we talked about on gold. But really, the hardest part right now on crude oil is going to be waiting for price to get up to those highs and then getting the short back down to the lows again. Can I buy the lows? Of course you can buy the lows. We're all adults. You can do whatever the heck you want. But what we could do, probably not the best idea, what we should do. So I'm going to stay focused on the sell side right now. Now remember, we've got some geopolitical stuff going on right now on crude, right? They've waged another war against terrorism. On this time it's ISIS, right? Who the hell cares, right? Let's be honest. It doesn't matter what day of the week. It's a different crisis on our hands, whatever it is. So over the next 24 to 40 hours, you are going to hear every fear mongerer on the planet is going to be making it sound like as this price goes higher, it's the end of the world. But we know if it goes higher here, it's just going to set up here for a short. Now, if it blows right through it, whatever. I'll take my foot out of my mouth and I'll go back to looking for buys now. But the reality is remember, we've got some geopolitical stuff happening right now on crude oil that is likely, if not just to have the rookies and retail traders buying it up out of fear. Okay, so we don't listen to that news junk, right? All the fear mongering that's happening right now about all these whatever's going on in the world. I trust my charts. And right now I've got lower highs and higher lows, which means my plan is simple. Buy the lows, sell the highs, and because I'm bearish in the long term, I'm going to default to sell the highs. Now, as we go forward here, we start to see more and more information about this. This is my 32 anchor. As you can see, we're starting to get this a little bit narrower here. We're right in the middle of this wedge. You can see the exact thing we talked about yesterday has come true, right? Just goes to show how accurate this stuff is every night. That higher low gave it away. So again, not much new here. I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm going to be a seller at the highs of this wedge. Really, the only thing that's not at the high is going to be 92.32. 92.32. That's going to be the first sell setup. And then I've got 93.22. I know it looks very similar to 92.32, but different numbers there. And then 93.61. I've got 3 areas right now to look for a selling opportunity. If I had to pick one of them, I'd pick the 93.22 to 93.58. That would be where I would focus on getting short here on crude. Again, remember, you're going to be bombarded by all the ISIS crisis out there, right? So just remember, don't listen to those news reports. Follow your charts, all right? And come in and see me tomorrow morning in the trade room, and I'll walk you through what we're seeing on crude for tomorrow. Last but not least here, my 16 anchor chart here on crude, and you can see same thing. We're stuck right in the middle of this wedge. We're right in the center, right? All right, there's the alarm going off. Let's keep moving. Sell those highs, buy those lows. I've got sell zones overhead. I've got trend lines overhead. Very, very easy. And again, come out and see me tomorrow in the trade room. I'll walk you through how to trade all this stuff. But right now, sideways ranges on crude, and we are going to focus on selling those highs of those ranges in tomorrow's trade room. Moving on here, looking forward to our news tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday, September 24th, and we start here with news this evening. I've got more major news coming out of Asia. I've got Just outside of Asia, obviously, we've got our good friends down in New Zealand. We've got the merchandise trade from the Kiwis, 6:45 p.m. I've got what I would consider to be the most important news here would be at 9:35 tonight. I've got the PMI manufacturing index from Japan. Again, everyone watching the manufacturing sector here in Asia right now. So 9:45 tonight out of Japan. We then jump down to tomorrow morning. I've got out of Germany, I get the IFO survey. This is a very, very important business survey, kind of like consumer confidence surveys, but for business owners in Germany. Very, very important, right? Remember, Germany, one of the biggest economies in the world, right, let alone the EU, and they are very, very important, right, when it comes to kind of the next steps that are taken at the ECB. So we'll be watching closely at that news report tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. That should get you guys in London moving pretty quickly here tomorrow morning. Then we go down to that 10 a.m. in the U.S. session. I've got new home sales at 10 a.m., and then we got the petroleum status report at 10:30 a.m. Bottom line is this. I've got news at 4 a.m., news at 10 a.m. I know when the news is. I'm not going to trade the news. I'll trade the reaction to that news. And, of course, we work this out every morning in our trade room. So come out and see me tomorrow if you need more information on this. But most importantly, though, is these are two Red Star news events. So you definitely want to be ready for the reaction to those events tomorrow, whether you're in the U.S. or in London. And then talking about crude oil futures, we don't want to forget that tomorrow's inventory day. When we have inventory day on crude, what does that mean? It means two things. First of all, be patient with crude tomorrow morning. Oftentimes, we see price action is very, very sloppy and inconsistent on Wednesdays with inventory. The second thing is that after that news comes out, usually the first reaction to it is the opposite of where it will be long term. So if you see the news come out at 10:30, and remember, I don't trade the news. All right, you're going to be really, really good if you trade in the news. And even then, the lack of liquidity and just the overall unpredictability of news makes it not a very desirable long-term strategy. So I'm never going to recommend that you trade that news. What I will recommend, though, is be aware of that news. The news comes out at 10:30 tomorrow morning. I'm sitting on hands from 10:15 a.m. until about 10:40 a.m. at the very least. I'm going to give it at least 10 minutes after the inventory report comes out. I'm going to be very careful not to make assumptions because the market will react. The market will tell me what direction this thing wants to go tomorrow morning after 10:30. All right? I hate to break it to you guys, but for crude oil inventories, the actual news report itself has very little to do with where price goes. And if you follow, well, we teach all of our students in our beginner's course about the chaos theory, right? Fractals, and how not one thing can never be used to determine why the market moves. So the news that comes out tomorrow morning, we can't assume that news it's not a linear cause and effect, right? It's all building up. And so don't trade the news, focus on the reaction tomorrow. Okay, so bunch of good Red Star news for you guys, 4 a.m. and 10 a.m. We'll be excited to trade that news tomorrow morning with you guys in the room. And then we got crude oil inventories. Be careful on crude before the news comes out. And then be patient with crude oil after that news comes out. Remember, the news has very little to do with what the reality is. All right, guys? Looking good for tomorrow. I want to thank you guys so much for being a part of our newsletter here for you guys tonight. As always, I'll send you off here with a reminder. Head on over here to SchoolOfTrade.com. We've got 3 different levels of membership. We also offer a free trial. And in that free trial, I've got a special invitation for you guys to come out and join me in my trade room any day this week. All right? Come out and see us. We've been doing this over 10 years here at School of Trade. I've got someone standing by to help you guys 24/7 using live support on our website. Don't be a stranger. Keep in touch. And thanks again for sharing all this information with a friend. We'll see you guys tomorrow in our trade room at 8 a.m. or back here once again for another edition of our nightly newsletter for Wednesday evening. Have a great evening, guys and gals. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.